Healthy Scratch Red Wings Report, presented by 5v5hockey.com.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Healthy Scratch Red Wings Report. It's Buschy here with you once again. Today, what we're going to do is a Red Wings autopsy. Paging Dr. Buschy. The doctor is in, and I gotta tell you, we are going to go through this whole season from beginning to end and find out what killed the Red Wings or who killed them. We've went over this before. It was an absolute roller coaster of a season. Lots of highs, lots of lows, and everything in between. I think it was a very entertaining season. And you want to look at it as a fan, it was fun to watch. At times, not so much. That's part of being a fan. What I want to do right now is I want to look through some of the player statistics. And now these are very general, and this is something that everybody's going to understand who's pulling their weight and who's not. So on the screen right now, you're going to see all the Red Wings ranked by points. This is something that hasn't happened in a while. Dylan Larkin did not lead the team in points. And one of the biggest reasons was he missed like 14 games. Lucas Raymond played every single game, had 31 goals and 41 assists for 72 points, had an absolutely stellar season, especially in the second half, was carrying this Red Wings team when Larkin was out. I know they didn't do well when Larkin was hurt. We're going to go through the schedule too. Larkin would have led this team in points. He had 33 goals and 36 assists in 68 games played. He is a point per game player, so he would have been in the 80s, probably like the mid 80s, I would say, which is a really good season for him. That's top line center material, so I think we can put that argument to bed. Alex DeBrincat, these stats are where I look at it and go, he was very up and down this year. He played every single game, 27 goals. I was asking the question at the beginning of the year, is he going to score 40? And he did not get close. Blistering pace to start the season, and then went on huge dry spells where he wasn't scoring, and picked it up a little bit in the middle of the season, and a little bit of a power play merchant for a bit, and then at the end of the year, kind of picked it up a little bit, was getting a lot of assists, was playing well, but in the middle of the season, he kind of lost his pace a little bit. Shane Gostisbehere, minus 16, which is not good, tied for worst on the team with Joe Veleno, but did have 56 points, 46 assists. So this is something where Gostisbehere is a power play specialist. He is not good defensively. He does turn the puck over a lot in his own end. We saw, in the last few games there, especially with his jump save at the blue line to keep their season alive when Detroit tied the game against Montreal, second last game. But 10 goals, so double digits for a defenseman, very good. He was sat for one game, a little bit of a reset in the middle of the season, so he did have a decent season with the Red Wings. JT Compher, 48 points, playing second line minutes, you'd probably want to see a little bit more than that, almost hit a 20-goal season. He was fairly solid all year. I didn't really have any problems with JT Compher and the way he was playing, putting up the points, and there were stretches where he played well. He's a guy that's not going to stick out, and he, for either reason, for being really good or really crap. He's a very good, solid player to play in the middle of your lineup. We talked about Patrick Kane in my last video. Amazing season, point per game player. I want him back. I don't really know what you have to say about Patrick Kane. A lot of people will say, he doesn't have defense. For the 9 millionth time, he's not here to play defense. We have way too many guys that play defensively, and we're going to look at how poorly these guys do defensively. For an aging veteran, David Perron, 17 goals. That's a good stat line too. I think his foot speed, he is slowing down. I'm not really a big fan of bringing him back. I heard that he's a good locker room guy. If he takes a massive pay cut, I would consider it if I was Steve Yzerman. If he's that important to the locker room and some of these young guys, then sure, bring him back, but not at the Caps hit he's at right now. He's got to go way lower than that. Daniel Sprong had an interesting season, 18 goals, kind of in that third and fourth line. I'm not sure if he's going to be back. I think he's going to command more than the Red Wings are going to be willing to pay him. He was a defensive liability as well, but like when you're playing in that bottom six, you can't do that. So a lot of those points did come power play as well, but he did have a decent season stats-wise. Mo Seider, what can we say? The guy's a warrior, played every single game, had 42 points, 1 goal away from a 10-goal season. Michael Rasmussen is a 33-point guy. I thought he would hit around 15 goals, so this is what I would expect for a guy like Michael Rasmussen playing in the bottom six. Want to see a little more grit from the guy. I say that every year. There's times where he plays with that snarl and sometimes that he doesn't use his body. So he was out for a little bit there too. Andrew Copp. Now, this is something that I look at and see 79 games played, 13 goals, 20 assists. For someone making $5.5 million, It's just, that's not it. And was a -2. So as a defensive player, you're a minus. You're not really doing anything offensively. He went on some insane streaks where he wasn't scoring for like 23, 24 games in a row. So I am in the camp of, yeah, you can put him in your bottom 6. I am not comfortable paying him $5.5 million at this point, and if they could find a way to move that contract, they should. Robbie Fabry, another interesting one with the stat line: 18 goals, 14 assists for 32 points in only 68 games. So in an 82-game season, he's probably hitting 40 points. But he was a -13 as well. Again, I'm not a big plus-minus fan, but on a team like this, when you stick out like that, that's not good. But with him, he's carrying a $4 million cap hit. It's the same thing as Kopp. Is that something that I want to be sitting on my third line with $4 million, or can we move on from that and put that money elsewhere? Joe Veleno's a restricted free agent, so the Red Wings do have his rights. He probably will be back. I don't think he'll be making that much. He had 12 goals this season. He was a -16, another one that's in that bottom 6 that cost the Wings a lot of goals. Jeff Petrie. Enough said. I'm done with Jeff Petrie. I don't want him on the team anymore. The realistic thing is he probably will be, just because he has a no-trade clause and he has one more year left on his contract. Best case scenario for the Red Wings is he's buried as the 7th defenseman, a la Justin Holl, and we'll get to him. Jake Wallman had 12 goals, only 9 assists for 21 points. So for some of the big goals that he scored, he wasn't really a point merchant at all. He was hurt at the end of the year. I do think he's a core part of the team, not in the terms of like a Larkin or a Raymond, but I think he's a nice piece to have on this team. So obviously I welcome Jake Wallman back. Ben Sherratt, I gave a lot of shit to. I didn't mind his game this year at all. There were a lot of games where I didn't really notice him, which is a good thing for someone that was like turnover prone last year. I don't think I had a good season last year. This season, not so bad. And I don't mind having him as a little bit of the team leader, grit guy on the back end. Christian Fischer actually surprised me, playing on that fourth line. He brought the grit, he brought some toughness, seems like a good locker room guy. Olli Mata was a +14 on the team, leading the team. So this is something where I look at that and go, you know what? He's been on the ice. He played 72 games. He missed 10. I think Olli Mata plays better than people think. His cap hit is $3 million. That is a lot, but I don't think he's going anywhere. I think that's someone you park on your third pair, and he's just going to be a defensive kind of shutdown guy. He chipped in a couple goals as well. This is something with Jonathan Berggren that I'm kind of circled going, this is something that they probably should have had him up for most of the season. He had 6 points in 12 games. He played really well in the limited time. And I think as a young player, it's tough to just come up and down, in and out of the lineup. There's no certainty as to whether you're going to play tomorrow or you're getting sent down to Grand Rapids. He had an insane season in GR. So Jonathan Berggren not being here, maybe a reason why the Wings didn't do as good. He had 15 goals last year as a rookie. To think that he maybe could have got 20 this year, maybe. Justin Holl did not play that much. 38 games played, $3.4 million. We can't have that. He would be a buyout candidate for me because I don't think we'd be packaging up enough picks to get rid of him, and I don't think it would be worth it. Klim Kostin obviously got traded. We're not going to talk about him. Simon Edvinsson is going to be full-time next year. He's going to be top 4. There's no question about it. He fit in with the team in that top 4 role in a playoff chase. So I am completely comfortable having him in the top 4. We get into the Austin Czarniks of the world. And this is something that I don't understand what they see in this guy. 34 games played, 1 assist. He was playing with Kanan DeBrincat for 6 games straight. How do you not stumble into a few more assists? So Austin Czarnik, just kind of a warm body to play, 30 years old. We don't need him anymore. See you later. And then we get into the goaltending. Alex Lyon, James Reimer, Ville Husso. Now, Ville Husso had a rough season. 19 games. He got hurt. 355 goals against average, 892 save percentage. That is awful. And Alex Lyon and James Reimer ended up being kind of the same guy. Over 3 goals against and a 904 save percentage, identical. With Lyon at one point in the season during the middle, when he came in, played phenomenal, stole some games for the Red Wings, and gave them literally a number 1 goaltender for a while, I think he got burnt out. I think he played too much. It happened with Ville Husso last year. It happened with Alex Nedeljkovic the year before. We're burning through goalies way too quickly. I think when they have Husso and Reimer in next year potentially, you hope that they're both healthy and they can just split these games. Because when one of them is playing way too much and they're forced to keep playing. Like, we were in a position where there was really no choice. You had to play Alex Lyon every single game because he was giving you a chance to win. Reimer did that a few times at the end of the year as well, so I'll give him credit, but I don't think he's coming back. Now, pulling up the schedule here, let's go through some of kind of the ebbs and flows of the season. You see at the beginning, they started off hot. They were scoring a crap load of goals and started the season 5-1. And I remember being like, wow, this is the first time I've been having fun watching the Wings in a while. That Calgary game, 6-2, I was at that one. DeBrincat hat trick. Every single goal that DeBrincat and Larkin were on the ice for and got points, they would flash it on the Jumbotron. And they were leading the league in points at the time. The place was going nuts. Then the wheels started to fall off a little bit at the beginning of November. And you see, they couldn't really string any wins together. A couple losses in a row. Get into the end of November where they go on a 6-1 run. Where it's like, wow, okay, we're turning it around a little bit. And right around the time that the Red Wings signed Patrick Kane, things went a little bit south, we can say. And it started with this San Jose game. I think everybody remembers it. The Red Wings are up like 4-0 in that game at home. And the Sharks came back and won in overtime. And that started a slippery slope of just nonsense where the Red Wings went 2-9 in December. And this is where they started to slide. And I thought, well, maybe the season's over. Are we going to be selling at the deadline? But lo and behold, they did turn it around at one point. Immediately after that, in January and February, I don't know what got over them, but they went on a 16-4-2 run and catapulted themselves into this 8-point cushion into the wild card spot. Then they go on a 6-game winning streak. We've got 3 overtime games with Patrick Kane winning 2 games in overtime, one where he goes back to Chicago and is the hero in a storybook ending. Ben Sherratt scoring an overtime goal against Seattle. It was a great run. That 16-4-2 was something where it was like 2 months of where I thought, wow, the Wings are dominating. Like, what are we watching here? And then we get the Jekyll and Hyde Red Wings again, where Dylan Larkin gets hurt, where they lose 8 of 9 games and slide out of the playoffs. And in embarrassing fashion, 5-3, 4-0, 7-2, 4-0, 5-3, they played pretty good against Vegas. Get crushed against Buffalo 7-3. They lose twice to Arizona by a combined score of 8-1. They beat Buffalo, and then they lose to Pittsburgh, who was in the race with them. Now, the 2 games that they won, the Columbus game, they were almost done at that point. And Lucas Raymond scores a goal with 12 seconds left to tie the game. Patrick Kane wins it in overtime. The next game back, Larkin is back. The Red Wings win 6-3. He has a couple goals. And then the Red Wings proceed to be Jekyll and Hyde again and lose 7 of 8. This is something where they lost their way. There was a game against Washington. They lose in overtime. They're in the fight with those guys. Then they play Washington again. They lose 2-1. And they outshoot them like 45-25 or something crazy. And then we go into Pittsburgh where they have an insane comeback and Raymond scores a hat trick. And they lose in overtime. And then we had the 3 at the end where we know that roller coaster. 3 games where they won in overtime and shootouts and, the heroics against the Canadiens. And they come up short. Literally, with 3 seconds left, their season's still alive for like a minute. And then all of a sudden, the Flyers and the Capitals, they kind of screwed us a little bit. But we can look at all of these games, the schedule. The Red Wings put themselves in this position. I think we can all agree on that. Going on these hot streaks and then on these insane cold streaks is a big, big problem. Why is this happening? Well, I'm glad you asked because we're going to look at some advanced stats right now, and a lot of these are pretty ugly. So for the Red Wings missing the playoffs by not even a point, let's look at their offense to start. In goals, now this is ranked out of 32. This is from JFresh. If you guys want to check him out, he's got some fun advanced stats if you want to go and look at that stuff. They were 8th in goals, which is really, really good considering that their chances and attempts were in the bottom third. You also look at like one-timers, you can see that they were doing a lot of that type of stuff, cross ice, and you see in their passing section, the cross slot passes, they were 10th in the league at doing that. Where I see a big problem is their rush shots, 31st in the league, meaning they're not getting chances where they're turning around in transition and coming in on like a 3-on-2 and getting a scoring chance. It was very, very rare, and you saw that with the way that they were dumping the puck in or they'd chip and chase. There was never really like clean 3-on-2s. When they did, they'd score, and then they're passing. It was a lot of perimeter. You look at behind the net, you're trying to go across ice, they did good. And when you look at this, they like to work the puck down low behind the net and get it up back high into the point, get their shot. And it's one of these things where you're going to see some of these stats really line up with the eye test on how the Red Wings play. Because I've talked about their transition play before. I've talked about their breakout. I've talked about their, center ice type play. It's all almost bottom of the league. Possession entries 31st. Possession entry percentage 32nd, which means they're not taking the puck into the offensive zone. They're just chipping it in. Their O-zone recovery success 24th. So when they're chipping it in, they're not getting it back most of the time. Possession exits and possession exit percentage way at the bottom, and their D-zone retrieval success kind of into the middle. And if you want to look at their 5v5, their goals for percentage was 22nd, their chances for percentage 21st. So they were carried a lot by their power play throughout the season, and a lot of their goaltending in the middle of the season. And you look at defense, this is where a lot of their problems were as well, and it was just giving up a lot of goals at one point. Their chances were pretty good. They limited it, kept it to the outside. But some of the attempts, like this is where you look at a guy like Alex Lyon with these attempts, one-timers, rush shots, in-zone shots, all being at the bottom of the league. And you can thank Alex Lyon and his lucky stars that he stopped a lot of these pucks, and Reimer did a little bit as well, because the defense let them down. So when we look at goaltending and we look at those stats where it's 3 goals against and above, this is the reason where the defense just doesn't do it. Now, this doesn't just mean defensemen. This means defense as a team. And the offense means offense as a team. So when you see a lot of this red in here, it's not good, and they need to fix this. Some of the passing in the defensive zone too, and this goes into the breakout discussion that I've been having. They didn't have it. A lot of rimming around the boards, a lot of chipping off the glass, a lot of high flips out of the zone where there wasn't puck possession maintained. We haven't seen Red Wings hockey like that. I remember back to when they played with like Lidstrom and Datsuk, Zetterberg, that era, it was puck possession. Make a pass, get open, move your feet. A lot of this was very it seemed like tactically X's and O's where it just was like, do this and that's it, very robotic. There wasn't a lot of options, a lot of changing of the lanes, and in that way, it affects your offensive zone play. So a lot of this defensive zone passing and possession entries and stuff like that, it goes into that transitional play. It goes into the offense. And that's why you have to look at the ice as a whole. They had issues every single spot on the ice, in the O zone, in D zone, and at center ice. Look at possession entries, 26th. Look at their O zone recovery successes defense, 4th. So they did well when another team would come in on them and flip the puck in or try to get it from. They actually did a really good job. If you go back and look at a lot of their tape, anytime a team would dump it in, the Red Wings defense did a really, really good job of getting that puck and maybe going D to D around the net and basically not allowing the other team to get in their entries. Now, what they did allow was the other team to come into their zone. So if you look at these numbers with possession entries, possession exits, this basically means that the offensive players are coming into our zone unimpeded. They're not stopping them from entering our zone. So that's something that needs to be fixed. And we look at this and go, how do we change this? Is it just players? Is it personnel? Yeah, that will obviously help. You get better players, you're going to have better results than what we're seeing here. But I think when we look at this, a lot of it has to do with coaching. And we listened to Steve Yzerman talk about it in his press conference, and he challenged the coaches. I don't think he put them on blast, but he challenged the coaches that, hey, we have the players. We're better than this. We need to fix this. And that was something that was very telling to me, that he thinks that this is a little bit of a coaching problem, maybe even tactically. I don't think it's hey, fire Derek Lalonde problem, but you look at Alex Tanguay, you look at Bob Bugner, these guys have to figure it out because they have some of the pieces to make this a better team. If the Red Wings can fix some of these red columns and make them a little bit blue, we're talking playoffs right now. So that's something that needs to be fixed. I think that's a tactical thing. Maybe they need to go back to the drawing board and go, okay, how do we fix all of this and they look at these stats. I guarantee they have their own analytics department and go, how do we change this for next year so that we're more successful? Now, the last thing we're going to do is we're going to look at some contracts. And going forward, after we do this, I am going to do some interactive armchair GMs, which are going to be a little bit interesting and maybe, some different insights on how I would think or what I think Steve Yzerman might be thinking. We'll do a couple where we kind of put on our NHL 24 GM caps and just get crazy just for fun. But when we look at this, your core is locked in here with Larkin, DeBrincat. You're going to bring back Seider, obviously, and Raymond. Those are your 4 studs. And then we're going to talk about Andrew Kopp making that 5.6. I've said this isn't a contract that I think is any good. If he was making like half of that, I'd be fine with him being in the bottom 6. But when he's making that much, you need to score. You need to be offensive. JT Compher at 5.1 for the next like 4 years after this. I think that's a decent contract for what he's bringing to the team, being like a 50-55 point guy. David Perron was making 4.7. I think he's got to go half of that. If there's any chance that he comes back, he's got to take a massive pay cut because he isn't what he was. He's going to be 36 years old. He's lost his foot speed. If you want to be that old guy in the dressing room, you better take a big pay cut. Robbie Fabry is still on the books for $4 million. Like I've said, I think that's something that I would consider moving if I was Steve Yzerman, just to free up that space. I'm not saying I don't like Robbie Fabry as a player. I do. I just think that $4 million can be spent better elsewhere. Patrick Kane I want back. I would give him 5.5 for 3 years easy. That's something that I went through with my last video. Daniel Sprong is going to want a big pay raise. I don't think he's going to be back. Michael Rasmussen making 3.2 now, so he's getting a little bit of a raise. That's okay. Like I said, this is a contract where if Andrew Kopp was on that, I'd be fine with it. Christian Fisher, probably bring him back for $1 million. I don't think I'm going to give him 1.1. And 1.1, sure, we'll give it to him. But Joe Veleno is going to be an RFA. I don't think he's going to get much of a raise there, maybe $1 million. And then looking at the defense, Ben Sherratt, 4.7 for the next 2 years. If he's playing the way he is right now, that's a fine number. Shane Gostisbehere is going to be interesting because for as much as he had with points, I think you can replace a little bit of that by putting a little bit more trust in Mo Sider, maybe a little bit more trust in Jake Wallman to run that second power play, and potentially even Simon Edvinsson. I think they have the pieces where they don't really need Shane Gostisbehere back. I know Yzerman said he was open to it. Of course he is. It's a negotiating tactic. Justin Hall is someone I would buy out. I don't think you're going to be able to move that contract. Even if you give up picks, you're going to have to give up way too much. I think he's just a prime buyout candidate where Yzerman's just going to go, you know what, this was a mistake and it just didn't work. Jake Wallman at 3.4. Hopefully he can continue his goal scoring, his celebrations. It was a lot of fun. But hopefully he's healthy because we don't really know what happened at the end of the year for him. We talked about Ole Mata in his defense, so he's fine to park on that third pair. And then Jeff Petrie, I would shoot into the sun. But realistically, he's not going anywhere because he has a no-movement clause. I think he's staying. Best case scenario is that he's going to be on that seventh defenseman kind of Justin Hall thing. And then goaltending. Ville Husso is going to be back. So is Alex Lyon. I think James Reimer is a goner. But Ville Husso making 4.75 is a little concerning to me. I wouldn't be surprised if Yzerman found a way to get out of this contract or to try to flip him for a different goalie, because I don't know if I would feel comfortable if I was Yzerman with his injury history now from last year, how much he's making and how bad he was. This feels like a really bad contract, even though it is the 1 year. Maybe he's a bridge to Sebastian Cossa getting some starts eventually this year. I think he'll get some games, but maybe even be one of their full-time guys next year. So those are the contracts that I was looking at where I went, well, these are the ones that are good. These are the ones that are bad. What do we do about it? That's a question we are going to answer in our interactive GMs. That's going to be our next video. I think I'm going to do more of my realistic take on what the Red Wings are probably going to do in the offseason or what they can get done. And then we will go with what I would do and how crazy I would get, but try to keep it within reason. And then maybe we can have some of you guys submit what you think would work. Maybe we can have some of you guys maybe throw in some links to your interactive GMs. You can go on Cap Friendly and do that if you'd like. You go to the top, go to interactive, go to Armchair GM, and go in with the Red Wings, go to the offseason, put the salary cap to 87.5 because that's probably what it's going up to, and go in and try and see what craziness you can do by bringing back some of the RFAs we have, any UFAs you want to bring in, whether they're with the team or not, and see if there's any trades that can be made. Are you going to make a buyout? Are you going to send someone down? I would love to see what you guys are thinking. So if you can do that and link me your Armchair GM, go for it. Maybe give me some ideas for mine. So what are the autopsy results after we talked about all of that stuff? Tactical, coaching type issues, coupled with some bad contracts, coupled with some players that weren't pulling their weight, is how we got to where we were. And I think that was something that was really evident in a lot of these skids where it was like, well, we have no structure. We have no ozone play. Some of our veterans aren't really doing a whole lot. Our goaltenders can't stop a puck, and our defense stinks. So when they were playing well, they were scoring a lot of goals. They were moving the puck well. We were stopping the puck. We were playing well defensively. We were checking people, hitting. It was just a whole case of a Jekyll and Hyde type season. So that's what I think happened with the Red Wings. That's the autopsy report. If you enjoyed today's video, please like, comment, and subscribe for more Red Wings content. I will see you in the next one.